Hey everyone, welcome to the 475th episode of Just Shoot It, a podcast about filmmaking, screenwriting, and directing. This episode is brought to you by patrons Max Goldberg, George Ketzios, and Sean Paul Cardaman. I'm Warren Kaplan.
And I'm Matt Unlow. Today we've got Trey Edward Shults on the show. He's the director behind the new film, Hurry Up Tomorrow, starring The Weeknd, Jenna Ortega, and Barry Keoghan. Star-studded movie, pretty cool conceptual film. We had a really awesome time talking to Trey. You know, it's a privilege to get to do a podcast and to get to talk to cool, smart filmmakers. And this conversation just reminded me of that. Like, so down to earth, so cool, so knowledgeable and theoretical, but also he's able to execute all of those ideas. I had a great time. We haven't debriefed on this one. Warren, how'd you feel?
I hated it. He was so full of himself. No, I'm just kidding. It was awesome. I mean, we get, I apologize that we talk about this so much, but we get pitched filmmakers every day, multiple times a day. Like sometimes we don't even have time to look at the pitches, right? We get pitched so many. But when this pitch came in for Hurry Up Tomorrow, and they're like, it's got The Weeknd, Jenna Ortega, and Barry Keoghan, I was like, damn, that cast is going to make me look. And then I saw Trey Edward Shults, and I saw his resume. You know, he had directed this movie, Krisha, was his kind of premiere movie that did really well at South by. And then It Comes at Night with Joel Edgerton. And then he made a movie called The Waves with Sterling K. Brown. And I was like, yeah, this is an instant yes without even knowing what this movie's about. And I immediately replied. I think I checked with you and I replied. And then, sometimes when it's an instant yes, they give us a very slow no.
Sure.
It's weird because we get pitched all the time. But when we're like, oh yeah, we're happy to talk to Jason Bateman about his Carry On, his new Netflix movie. Sure. And then they will come back to us like a week later and say okay, so how many listeners do you have?
Yeah.
And we can give you 15 minutes on Tuesday. And we're like, nah, forget it. Yeah. We need an hour and a half. Sorry, that's just what our show is. But he just came back and they're like, yeah, we'll give him to you at the end of a very long press day, which is always a bummer for people because they probably talk to 100 people. And Matt and our goal is to not ask the same questions everyone's asked you. But there are some things that you just want to know, like what's the log line of the movie, But to be honest, we didn't talk about Hurry Up Tomorrow that much, which I told you today. I read this article in the New York Times about it, and it's fascinating. It's kind of about The Weeknd, shedding his persona of The Weeknd and becoming himself, which is, his real name is Abel Tesfaye. And I don't know, the whole story of the movie is so fascinating, but in our interview, we really just talked about a really young guy that wanted to become an auteur filmmaker. And it's something that we don't really hear a lot of people saying they want to be an auteur, at least not out loud. And he told us, and then he convinced us that it was the right move for him. So yeah, it was a really fun conversation.
Yeah, so fun. Reminds me of why we make the show. It was really great. So if you're looking to figure out how to find your voice, I think this one's going to be a really good conversation for you.
Yeah, and definitely check out his movies. And we said this, I think, in the interview, but his movie Waves is really, really good. And you can watch it on YouTube right now for free. I don't know how long it'll be there.
And also Tubi, which is where I'm watching it.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's great. It's really awesome.
Yeah, he's got a real voice. Anyhow, before we go to that, I just want to remind people we do have a Patreon, patreon.com/justshootitpod. It's where you can go to just throw us a buck or two, support us, help us pay our editor, all of our server fees and whatever else we pay for. And we appreciate it. It also just kind of makes Matt and me feel like we should keep going.
Yeah.
Episode 475, 6, whatever 75. This is.
Yeah.
Almost at 500 episodes. So it's really kind of our only revenue is that and some ads that we play during the episode, which I have no idea how long they are. I listen, on SmartList, the ads are 3 minutes.
We have fewer ad breaks, but I think we do have a good number of ads.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
but also we have no control over it. Anyway, without any more delay, let's talk to Trey Edward Shults. Do you live in Orlando full time, Trey?
Yeah.
Cool. Interesting.
Yeah. I grew up in Texas, and then my wife was from Florida. After Krisha, my first movie, we were flat broke, and her grandma would let us stay in an apartment for free in South Florida. So we moved there 10 years ago and been in Florida since.
Wait, so I want to dig in on this because I've told this story a million times on the podcast, but my wife's manager, my wife's an actress, and an actress. Sorry, I say actor or actress. I can never decide on it. But her manager said to her that the best way to make it in Hollywood is to be the child of someone who works in the film business. And we're like, well, we can't do much about that, but at least our kids will be able to benefit from that. Trey, you just said you were flat broke at some point, but your mom is an actor, right? Was a working actor, and you kind of grew up a little bit in the industry. Is that true or false?
Kind of. My mom, actually, no, she's just a therapist. My mom and stepdad are therapists still, and not Spring, Texas, but Montgomery, Texas. My aunt, Krisha, who plays Krisha in my first movie, was a professional voice actress. So she, at one point, was an aspiring actor, and then she moved to Hawaii. She lived in Hawaii, and she was just doing voice work on commercials. But that was my initial, because of her, is how I got very lucky and got on a Terrence Malick movie. So yeah, that was the beginning of the whole journey, I feel like.
Is your mom not Robin Fairchild?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't she an actor?
She's not. She's in the movie. Sorry, she's incredible in Krisha, but she's a therapist for a living, and that's the first time she's ever acted.
Oh, shoot. I don't know, because on IMDb, it's like his mom is Robin Fairchild, and I thought she looked so familiar to me, but maybe it was just from Krisha. Anyhow.
Wow. Trey, you brought up the thing that I've been, very curious about, dying to, as a fanboy, talk to you about. You said you started, your first job was on a Terrence Malick movie. Was it Tree of Life?
Yes, it was technically Voyage of Time, which was like the spin-off IMAX movie only, but so much of what we shot wound up in that Birth of the Universe sequence in Tree of Life. And then I also got to intern in post-production on Tree of Life a little bit, but I wasn't involved in the actual shooting.
Yeah, incredible. Incredible.
Well, I was
like 19. It was like the crazy. And I was learning how to load IMAX next to a volcano. It was like, it was
an active volcano.
Thing. Yeah, it was crazy.
I was just telling Matt before you got on about, I watched Waves last night. Did you know it's free on YouTube?
What? Really?
Yes.
How does that work?
If you're listening to this.
You have YouTube Premium or whatever it is, right?
I do have YouTube Premium, but I'm giving away all the secrets here, but I was reading about you on Reddit, and people were comparing your movies and saying which one was their favorite. And then someone was like, did you know you can watch Waves on YouTube for free? And so I clicked on it, and it's there. I'll put the link in the chat.
I had no idea. Let's get the
under
people
YouTube
on it,
movies and TV. Yeah.
But not a bootleg is what you're saying.
No, it's like legit. An official movie, and people are on, literally the first comment is, whoever is in charge of the movies right now, I love you. And then the next comment is, I'm sorry, how is this free? Thank you, YouTube. Literally one of the best films of the past decade.
That's funny, because I watched Waves in like 15 different chunks, all in chapters with different languages. Sorry.
Matt's a polyglot. But so I was telling Matt about how Waves, and I've watched, we haven't seen Hurry Up Tomorrow yet, but we saw some footage.
What'd they send you, like 30 minutes of clips or something?
Like a 28
I don't even know what, did it make sense? Like, I don't know how much narrative stuff they say. I don't even know.
I'd say there's like no narrative stuff in there, but with the log line, there's like a little,
you can infer I
can glean.
Yeah. And also, like, it's kind of, I think maybe what we're trying to say is like, that's okay. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, right. And you confirm it for us, but like, I think what Oren is getting at is like, your films are vibes, right?
Yeah, totally.
They have a Terrence Malick-ishness to them. The stuff that I've seen, right? In that we're kind of experiencing life with these people, but you're not like kind of dumping exposition on us, right in the beginning. I guess I'm curious how much of that, did any of that come from being on a Terrence Malick set?
Yeah, I mean, it had to have, right? Like, because, I was 19. The funny thing is, when I first was doing stuff, it was basically B unit stuff for Tree of Life, It was that.
But I imagine everyone, stuff. Sorry to interrupt, but I imagine everyone on a Terrence Malick film thinks they're shooting B unit stuff. And then at the end, you're like, oh wait, the whole movie.
But we didn't even have actors. We were like literally just filming trees and volcanoes and stuff, But it was incredible. It was like, it changed the course of my life. I learned how to load IMAX film, and we were shooting with IMAX. It was amazing. And then I got to work around Terry. I worked on sets he was doing. I worked on other movies of his. I got to intern post-production and editing and research.
Were you on the lot in West Hollywood?
No, wait, I don't know. I know he's in Austin. When I was working, I think he's still there. When I was working with him, he was in Austin.
Oh,
And I was living in Texas at the time, so that worked. I was lucky, even though got on it in Hawaii on a volcano. But so long story short, I think it was working on those and like loving his film. And yeah, it all happened at a very important time in my life. So I'm sure while I think I make very, very different movies than Terry, and I never try to do anything remotely like that. Being said, I'm sure his influence is rubbed off on me like crazy still, you know?
Or even I wonder if just like production approaches, like, because obviously like we all watch tons of movies and film and TV and TikTok and whatever, where you can't help but be influenced by your surroundings and your tastes, right? All of that stuff is going to evolve. But like, I'm always jealous of those filmmakers that manage to run sets that feel more ethereal. Do you know what I mean?
Sure, yeah.
You know, like you hear people who don't call action or like
totally
like start with improv first or anything. Were there aspects? Tell us more about your process, Trey.
For sure, because I mean, I know it started with the B Unit, but then I was working on actual sets of Terry's with famous actors, getting to see like Ryan Gosling and Christian Bale and all these guys work and stuff. And yes, Terry does not have a traditional approach in the slide, like to the point the crew has no idea what we're making. Like there's no script. I can't speak for his other movies.
Know what you're making?
No, I can't. I can only speak for like the few that I worked on, and I wasn't even on. Tree of Life might have been different for the main unit, But when I was working on, it was like Song to Song and Night of Cups era, where it was post Tree of Life, and he was inspired by the idea of no script and like riffing and finding new stuff. So I had no idea what we were shooting. The cast seemed to have no idea. And that would, some would have a feel like Michael Fassbender was having a blast, but then Ryan Gosling seemed very frustrated. But I don't want to talk for him. I don't know. I was just literally a camera loader watching some stuff.
But confused maybe is a better word. Like some people do it and some people are like, I need a little...
Sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Some people really want to know what you're building, and the other people just like building. It doesn't matter what it is.
That's the thing. Exactly. People that were willing to not care about what they're building and just go with the flow had a blast. I naturally had a blast. I was like an aspiring filmmaker kid getting to watch this master filmmaker work with these famous actors. And I was just like, this is incredible. It doesn't get any better. But all of that being said, it obviously, like the way Terry makes movies is like, I feel like only he could do and pull off. And what I inferred was like, I can't try to make a movie like that, but Terry figured out his way to make movies. And if my real ambition, my aspiration is, I love auteurs. I love guys who make films only they could make. And my dream is to try to make movies I could only make. So then, I'm like, what is the way I'm going to make a movie that only I would make it, if that makes sense.
Trey, I love that so much. We've been doing this show for, 465 episodes. Like,
wow.
Like we've been doing it for over a decade. Yeah. We've talked to filmmakers once a week for 10 years. It's a blast. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say, I want to be an auteur.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was because there was certain movies. It was funny. I was just talking to someone about how like Terminator 2 blew my mind recently, and like falling back in love with the movies because like it went from like James Cameron, Steven Spielberg to then I saw Clockwork Orange, Raging Bull, Boogie Nights, and they literally blew my mind open. And I was like, what is this? Like, that's not Rocky. What am I watching? Like, I don't even know if I like it, but I can't stop watching it. And those movies like blew me apart. And then I became obsessed with, you do a little reading. You're like, oh, these guys are auteurs. They make movies only they can make. And I watch all of their movies and I become a big film geek. And then that's what you aspire to,
Sure.
But it is interesting to put it in those words. Like, I want to make a movie that only I could make. And
I think the big thing for me too, right, was like, you're an aspiring filmmaker. So I'm like, and I wasn't like I got to intern on some Terry Malick stuff, but when I'm not doing that, I'm back to living in Montgomery, Texas. And so I'm just like taking in these influences and thinking, and I didn't go to film school either. So I was like kind of studying a lot of stuff. And it was just starting to realize like auteurs are what I like. I wish I could be an auteur. I gotta like at least figure out what's unique to me in my process, because then why would anyone even want to see what I do? So I don't want to just try to emulate other people. I want to try to figure out what I could bring that's unique. So, and this is years upon years of like studying, learning, figuring stuff out, going through it all,
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, like, obviously Tarantino is like a famous auteur who his whole thing is stealing his favorite things, right, from other filmmakers.
But he steals them in a way and he makes them his own. Like a Tarantino film is a Tarantino film,
Yeah, I think there's this idea or a fear of wanting to be an auteur because then you feel obligated to do something nobody's ever done,
Not an intimidating prospect whatsoever.
Yeah, as opposed to kind of using we'll do a medium shot, then we'll cut to a close-up, and then we'll do the reverse,
Wait, we're 3 hours behind? Yeah, I think a master and 2 closes will get us there.
Totally.
Yeah, but I mean, watching your stuff, watching Waves and watching kind of some footage from the new movie, it is like, it does feel unique and different. And I was talking about like Waves, there's a scene where they're just like going out to party at night and the camera's just turning around and these girls are in the back seat just kind of, singing about they're gonna fuck shit up, right? I forget exactly what the words are.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah. That
was a little.
And it's like it feels super real, but it's filmed in this really oddly cinematic way where it's like you don't even know where the camera operator is, right? And like, how do you are you doing a little bit of that Terrence Malick of finding scenes, or do you have a script that says, okay, 3 girls in the back seat sing "Shut the fuck up" as the camera spins around,
It's a mix of both. So it was like that scene as an example. The narrative beat we ended up cutting. The narrative beat was like these kids steal the signs and this guy chases them, and it's that whole section narratively is just meant to immerse you in Tyler's world and understand this kid's world before we start dismantling it and it starts falling apart and we understand his mind space through all of that. So the shut the fuck up thing, though, we basically got the scene and then we were shooting digitally. This new movie I shot on film, this one was digital. So we had 22 minutes or something. And Drew is my DP, he's operating remotely and we just keep filming. I'm like, guys, just stay in it, have fun. And then someone starts laughing and saying, shut the fuck up. And Drew's spinning the camera and we just start Drew and I pretentiously,
you have like on a Ronin or something, like how do you
it's a slider and the camera's on a remote head and the dolly grip is like hiding by the kid's feet, moving the slider
in the back seat.
In the back seat. Then I'm on the other side hiding near the feet with the monitor.
Under their feet, basically. In this
literally, we're like, it's slammed in the car with them. And then Drew, my DP, is in the vehicle behind us with his monitor operating the camera. And sometimes I'm like communicating Drew to riff and stuff, but more like we, at that point, had made 3 movies together. So like, I just let him be intuitive and find his thing. And then, we found magic just by the kids fucking around and saying, shut the fuck up. So, but that's one example of like, when we're doing the movies, like even though the movies hopefully do feel not traditional and unique and different, I'm like very strict with the structure and the narrative beats and the character arc and everything we need for this stuff to work. And we shot List to Death, Drew and I, Chase on this movie, shot List to Death, know the game plan like crazy, know everything. But then like, we know it so well, we're ready to like be inspired on the day and grab new shit, like the shut the fuck up thing, or rethink this shot list, this new location, the scene could be better for a reason, or it could work in a different way we were thinking, or this doesn't work, let's elevate it. So it's it's a mishmash of preparation, being crazy prepared, but also knowing it so well and your collaborators know it so well with you that you can throw it out on the day and find something new that's better, or being open to like catching moments like that,
Yeah. That's awesome. And it's, there's a little bit of that kind of, I guess, Sean Baker's like another filmmaker that you feel you see these scenes and you're like, obviously these are actors and obviously these scenes are planned out.
My DP of most of my career, my first 3 movies, shoots Sean's movies now. He did Honora and Red Rocket. So I had a feeling him and Sean would work very well together. And I like vouched to Sean very bigly, like, dude, you got to hire Drew. You're going to hit it off. So just seeing them succeed together has been awesome. But it's funny. So like, I don't want to speak.
Is it awesome?
Sean.
Or are you like, we're a better team?
It's fine. No. I fully support him.
They don't give out 2 Best Picture awards.
I know.
Best editing? Come on.
Hey, look, if Sean was a dick, then I'd be mad. But he's a good guy. He's crazy talented. So I was just happy for them. It was awesome. But what was I going to say? I lost my train of thought. The funny thing about Sean is like his movies, and it's fun talking to Drew about this. And you notice it more when you like really study the frame and what they're doing with the film grammar is like they feel so improvised and off the cuff. And sometimes they are, but other times they're actually, especially like the work I've seen with Drew and Sean is like, really like refined intentional film grammar at times with kind of some like classic frames and like classic intentionality. And it's not even that verite, but he's just making that world so real and believable. And the performance is so real and believable that like that feeling takes over, you know, but I don't know. I love the balance he has in his movies.
Yeah. I mean, and Anora, you've seen it, right, Matt?
Yeah, of course.
For such an offensive question on a film podcast.
Okay.
Usually for context, Trey, I'm the one that like has not seen any movies, and Matt has watched the whole Criterion collection like 1,000 times.
I wish.
He showed me the Criterion logo yesterday, and I was like, I don't know what this weird sideways C is, but it's one of the ugliest logos I've ever seen. But in Anora, when, you know, she's just kind of has her romance with a Russian kid, like, I mean, I would bet $1 million that Sean didn't write all the words that this Russian kid is saying, right? Like, not just the Russian stuff, the English stuff. Like, it just feels like this is just a party boy that's just hanging 100%. Out. And you know, your stuff in Waves has that too. You said you wanted to be an auteur. You wanted to make movies that only you made, and of course, so that means the first short you made. Not only is it about your family, but you're in it, right? That's Krisha, right? Then you make that into a feature that ends up doing really well, award winning and everything. And that it's kind of like setting your aesthetic and your kind of like this vibey. It's like a low budget movie, right? That takes place in kind of like a family, like
totally
in a house with a family.
We shot it for 9 days with $30,000.
And that's mostly your real family.
Yeah, well, Krisha is Krisha. My mom is in there. My grandma had dementia, didn't know we were making a film, but her scenes are my favorite. And I past them and myself, then it's actually a lot of friends that were and are actors or aspiring actors, and 2 local Austin actors, Chris Dubik and Bill Wise at the time. Like basically when I did the short version of Krisha, that was like an accident. Like I tried to make the feature the first time and failed utterly.
Oh,
it was great. Yeah. It was my life saving of like $7,000. That one, literally, I wrote all of my family members in the script, and family members started not showing up because it's like supposed to be a family reunion, not shoot a movie. What are you doing, Trey?
Yeah.
So it was a movie.
It kind of sucks to make a movie. They're like, never mind, Trey. We don't I just want to be on screen for a second.
Totally. Yeah. And I didn't fully know what I was doing. Long story short, like I was at a nervous breakdown behind closed doors because I was trying to make the feature version that first time, and I was like failing horribly, but I was still getting cool stuff. I was like, I'm not getting feature film, but I'm getting something. And then I like spent 2 years re-editing that into a short that again felt like me. Like I was like, this feels like what I want. This feels different. It feels like me. And then
when you say feels like me, was part of it. Were you in the short too, or just the feature?
I was also in the short too. Yeah. The short was like literally just my family. And then that we got some support. Like we got into South by Southwest. We got an award there, and I think that gave everyone positive motivation. And then I basically rewrote the feature and learned from all my mistakes and did it right. And instead of my life saving of $7,000, I figured out how to do a Kickstarter campaign and get my buddies to invest some money to get $30,000. And, you know, instead of a crew of like literally a sound man, my DP and me, it was like that plus a Steadicam operator for some days and a couple of my friends helping producing. And instead of literally just my family members, it was like hire actors for certain roles as well. And it was like, after the nervous breakdown, shooting Krisha feature was like the best 9 days of my life. It was actually incredible. And it was like something I try to emulate with everything I've done going forward.
In what ways? What are the things you're still chasing? What to your sets?
To me, it felt like it literally, like, look, making movies are hard, but it can also be a freaking blast. Like making it was fun. And we were literally making a thing with talented people that we love. We all trust each other. It was highly collaborative. We, again, like Drew and I had shot Listed to Death, had the master plan, but then like we got the scene. Let's what's a scene? And like, we'd spitball the scene and go shoot a new scene over here. Sometimes it was amazing. Sometimes like we'd never use it, but you never know. Like, you create the room for it.
Were you the producer also?
I was a producer. I got a couple of my buddies who had not produced stuff to help me produce, basically.
See,
The schedule was literally
the secret of making a good first film.
I think it might be. Yeah.
Because when you have a producer, they're like, hey, over budget, we're losing this thing. You know, like they are keeping you in line, and that's what makes bad films, you know?
Well, so exactly, dude. And that, like, for us, there was no, like, literally the schedule I had, like, in my notepad on our day. Like, I'd be like, everyone, this is the schedule again. Remember, it's ludicrous.
You know the schedule. Like, when things are that small and you're your own AD, like, you know every nook and cranny of your film, right? And so you can also sort of negotiate with yourself. Like, oh, this is taking longer than I thought. So either I'm going to pull out that credit card and pay for pizza tonight, or it's something else short or whatever. And that's a different conversation than a
the worst
producer
is
pulling you aside and being like, Trey,
100%
can't do it. Sorry, buddy. You know,
when you have a producer and you almost have the scene and they're like, we got to go. And that's the scene you live with, the one that is almost great.
It's
you know,
the worst, man. And obviously, like, when I do TV or anything else, that naturally happens. But so far with my movies, it's only happened once where I knew, like, we didn't get it, but like, they're like, we're moving on. We're done. So it was like the important moment. It was like the ending of my second film, which created a nightmare in post-production. But otherwise, I think one is like Drew and I are super efficient. Drew didn't shoot my new movie, like we said, because he was doing Sean's, but we're super efficient and we're good with time and stuff. So like, we rarely go over. And like, just get great actors. Like, when we work with great actors, it's like it still happens, obviously, when like stuff's not working. But like, a lot of times when you're working with great actors and like, you know what you're doing and like in your groove, like from take one, like, oh, this is going to be great. Let's like dial it in, you know?
So that's what I was going to ask you, is like how you go from Krisha, which, you know, you had great actors, but potentially not someone that like your parents have heard of, to It Comes at Night, your next movie, which is kind of right on the heels of it. I see they came out 2 years apart, and you got Jon Snow.
We were shooting. It was funny. Krisha was like still doing the film festival tour and shit while we were like shooting It Comes at Night. So very surreal and that was my hardest movie for me, because that jump was very, very tricky.
Sure. Tell us more.
Yeah.
Like, the jump is everything, right?
Yeah. And how did you get... Because I think most people in your situation, you win South by with your short, you get acclaim with your feature, but it's like definitely an indie feature that you made for very little money, and it's hard to get like, you know, the $50 million next movie, and you're waiting for cast, and everyone's like, you'll get the money if you get the cast. Yes. And that's when we all spend 5 years. We take a job as a post-production supervisor, and then we
or you do commercials, and here I am. Yeah.
Yep.
Literally, to your point, like, one, I got very lucky in terms of like, Krisha was doing well. It got into Cannes. I met A24 there. They saw it. They read my script and wanted to make it. However, they weren't going to greenlight it.
It Comes at Night?
For It Comes at Night.
So you had that ready when Krisha was
I did. Festival. Shockingly, I had I had a draft ready for the short. So I like got to South by with the short, thinking investors would be in the audience and producers and stuff. And I'm like, I'm ready to go. And then no one gave two shits. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to rewrite Krisha.
Let me ask a personal question that I bet all of our filmmaking listeners at home are wondering. What are you doing for money during this period of your life?
I mean, during that, I'm flat broke. Like during that period, I'm living with my parents. And the one thing though, once Krisha had that success, like we won the Grand Jury Prize at South by Southwest. We won the Audience Award. We're getting incredible reviews from top publications. We get into the Cannes Film Festival. Like it's literally the pinch yourself. You're like, oh, it's working. Like life is changing.
Sure.
Still flat broke. So
you still live with your parents.
Yeah, exactly. It gave me the courage though to like move out of my parents' house, but we got a free place. My wife's grandma gave us an apartment in South Florida that she wasn't living in, so we could just live there for free. But still, it was like very hard just to get by. And during that time for work, I'm literally just like dwindling into the little bit of money I have because also I'm doing a festival tour for Krisha. I remember one of them, we went
which is a full-time job in a lot of ways, right?
Literally, except for those.
And are you not making any money on Krisha? Like, is there a distribution deal, minimum guarantee, any of that stuff?
No, A24, from my memory, like maybe they didn't pick it up for much or anything, even though our budget was so low. Like maybe I think we made a little something from them and combined with like international sales. Like once you go to Cannes, we got, Visit Films picked us up and they helped us do small little deals internationally. So, cause our budget was so low, I think I got a little bit of money to live on, but it was not much. Like we went to the Nantucket Film Festival, which is like the richest people on the island. And we literally can't, it's myself, my composer, and
I'm not hungry.
And my wife. No, literally,
you're putting the cheese in the pockets. Right?
We couldn't. I wish we couldn't eat until the hors d'oeuvres were like passed out for free at the evening thing. Literally, we were just starving all day until we got free meals.
Wait, is your wife in the industry too? What kind of crazy woman would support this?
She's a beautiful, crazy woman. I don't know. She was. We met in flight attendant training and got kicked out together, and then I made a short film, and she got hired again, and now she doesn't work.
Which airline were you training for?
We were training for United. It was like Continental was merging with United or something. And long story short, they treat it like summer camp. Like you're all in a hotel and then in the morning you all get on your bus, like 20, 30, 50 of you, I forget the number. Then you go to your classroom. But then when you're at the hotel, you're representing the company. So they don't want you doing anything. We did nothing wrong. We like shared a glass of champagne while studying. She came into my room one night. We swam in the pool in the hotel after it was closed. And then one day we go to the classroom of 50 people. And the head instructor comes in and he's like, we're getting calls from the hotel that it's like girls gone wild over there. People are running through hallways, destroying property. Trey and Ashley, get your books and leave. Like literally, and like shame us in front of the class. And we pick up our books and go to the principal's office and they kick us out. It was amazing.
That was your motivation to be successful. Now you fly United first class and you're like, fuck you.
That's right.
Fuck you. Exactly.
You just mess up the lounge every time you're in there.
But literally, I think for a lot of that travel too, we could only do because she became a working flight attendant and she would get me on free flights and stuff. And once A24 picked me up, they would pay for festivals and shit. But yeah. Where was I? Where else am I going?
Oh, so I guess we were talking. How'd you get Joel Edgerton and Christopher Abbott and Riley Coe?
Yeah, so that was the net. Like the pinch myself shit happened, and then we had A24. They wanted to make the movie, but they'd only greenlight it with a certain cast. So we did go through the casting phase for a while.
So for sure, it helps to say A24 has greenlit this movie.
Well, yeah, there's a huge difference
with a budget. I'm assuming
it's greenlit.
100%.
A24. Do you want to be in this movie? People aren't like, oh, is this movie real or not?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. Which is a way harder hurdle.
Sure.
But is there a budget where, like, are they like, okay, if we get this actor, the budget will be this amount or this?
Nothing I ever saw. I mean, I'm sure maybe that would have come into equation with that movie. All I know is they got the It Follows producers because they wanted, like an art house horror film for as low of a budget as possible.
Not Rebecca Green, was it?
No, it was David Kaplan and I should remember. Andy was on it. Josh. They were a good group.
Okay. One of the producers, Rebecca, was on our podcast.
Okay, got it. I never met Rebecca.
I think there were a lot of producers on that movie, actually.
There were a lot of producers. Yeah. And then it was a process. Went out to a couple of actors, started like huge actors. They said no. And then I think Joel was probably, like the fourth person we went to. And the huge thing, I was a camera PA for Jeff Nichols for a test shoot of his. And he was the kind of guy where I had to drive him home one day and he was like, what's your thing? What do you do? And I was like, I want to be a filmmaker. And I made this short film.
Midnight Special that you were working on?
Midnight Special. It was Midnight Special test shoots.
And why did I ask that question?
Dude, but then he was a sweetheart, and he was like,
Yeah,
please
cool.
send me your movie. And literally within like an hour of this conversation, he's emailing me that he really dug my film and he's going to send it to Sundance.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that crazy?
This is Krisha?
This is Krisha's short film, and Jeff Nichols just being sweet. Funny enough, we got rejected from Sundance, but then with no help got into South by Southwest. So I don't know. But it was either way, the chance that he did that, the fact that he did that was phenomenal. So with Joel, I think they had just done Loving, and I just texted Jeff and I was like, hey man, I'm going to send the script to Joel. No pressure whatsoever. If there's any chance you could put in a good word or something. And he did. And Joel, I think we sent it to him on a Friday. He was like in touch by like that Sunday or Monday, and by like Tuesday I was like in LA doing a meeting with him, and then we had like a greenlit movie. It was incredible.
That's crazy.
But like all,
and it confirms my theory. Yeah, that like, because you see someone, you're like, oh, well, he won South by or whatever. Of course he's going to get all these stars, but it's never that easy.
Exactly.
Especially how fast you do it. But it's like that triangulation of like, well, if Jeff Nichols is vouching for you, it's a whole different ballgame. And it's not that it's Jeff Nichols vouching. It's that you have two, like A24, and completely unrelated to that, it's Jeff Nichols.
Exactly. And this was early A24 days, like when they were first, but they already had some cool movies under their belt,
But it wasn't the A20.
It wasn't what they are
weren't
now.
wearing A24 sweatshirts.
Not yet, no.
Different deal.
But it made it a legitimate thing.
Sure. It still funded a real company, all of that stuff.
Totally. Yeah. But but again, it was luck too. It was luck that I even got on that Jeff Nichols thing, and that he was a good guy and stayed in touch with me. Because the other thing with actors, when you send scripts, like some of the A-list people, they could take weeks, months, whatever, and then just like turn it down. Did they even read it? We don't know.
So you're not supposed to go to more than one actor at a time.
Exactly.
That's why you got to write like 50 good roles in your movie. You can go out to 50 actors at a time. All you need
movies
is one.
Is what I thought you were going to say, which is maybe
that too.
That works. So then, but once you make a movie with Joel Edgerton and that whole cast, it seems like when you go to make your next movie, Waves, and it's probably easier to get like a Sterling K. Brown.
It Comes at Night was a weird process because it was like I was saying earlier, the jump was hard, right? Like a $30,000 movie to a multi-million-dollar. I still don't know. I wasn't a producer on that one, so I don't know our full budget. I think it was like 2.5 after tax credits. So I think when we shot, it was closer to 4 or something.
And you get that cast by giving them some back end or something, right? Like,
that's a good question. We got Joel by making him an executive producer, I believe. He's some kind of producer. My memory is a bit foggy, so I'm sure they give him some back end as well. 99% sure. And then once you get Joel, then it's easy to get the other actors.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Right. And this is all happening. 2017 is when it came out. So I'm assuming it's kind of like around Blumhouse is kind of doing these like $5-6 million movies and giving back end. And I think the idea of like, hey, even though I'm a big actor, I can still do this like $4 million movie,
and also like
exactly
return.
You were saying before, early days of A24, like the term elevated horror is just sort of emerging, right?
Exactly.
Like the idea that like quote unquote legit actors would do a quote unquote horror movie, is kind of exciting and new and fresh.
Totally.
Yeah,
absolutely. And it was like It Follows had come out and done great. The Witch came out and did great. And A24 definitely wanted this to be like their next Witch or something, That's what they were striving for. But it was tricky. That was a hard movie for me for multiple. One is like at the end of the day, I wrote that movie after my dad died from cancer, and he had the most amount of regret I've ever seen a person have on their deathbed. And it was the most traumatic thing ever for me. And I was like in deep grief for 2 months and tried to like put those emotions into a narrative. And that's how I wrote that movie on like a notebook.
And you're like,
so
wouldn't
it
it be
was
fun
like,
if I spent like months living in that again soon?
That's the thing. So like what was so surreal and weird about it, because one, it was like the jump to like an actual budget, and that's already hard, combined with like this horror thing. And it like, I didn't know too how far they were going to push the marketing of like jump out of your seat horror movie, which was never intended to be. So like for me, it was a miserable experience too, because once it came out, it felt like the people I kind of made the movie for didn't see it because they thought it was like a jump out of your seat horror movie. And the people
I'll admit,
that
it
did
looked
see
too
it
scary to me. I remember,
and it's not a scary movie.
I was like,
did it come out at night? You don't have to answer that.
Yeah. I want to go back to something you just said though, Trey. You were talking about just the challenges of going from a $30,000 movie to a few $1 million movies and how challenging that was. But like, in what ways? What specifically chafed with your filmmaking style? And
the funny thing, when I look back at it after making several more movies in hindsight, I think a hard thing is I didn't realize we probably needed more money to definitely needed more money to do that movie properly. In my head, we have all the money in the world. I just made this movie for 30,000. We're going to be set. But in actuality, it was very tight, very constrained, so tight to where like our scripted ending fell apart because of just sheer practicality of in money. So there was that. And then it was like me just getting comfortable and finding my groove with like a real set. But that was fairly easy and smooth because I had a lot of the same like key people from Krisha come over, my same DP, Drew.
And you'd been on a bunch of giant sets too. It's not like you were never been on a big set before.
But not really, because I had been on Terrence Malick sets, but those aren't normal sets. And apart from that, I hadn't really been, I had never been on the Jeff Nichols set was still just a test shoot. It was like literally like just test shooting. It wasn't his real movie. So it wasn't a big, I was like it was a very small crew. So all I really knew was like Terrence Malick stuff. And so just getting used to that, the schedule, different kind of pressures. But then I immediately tried to do what I did with Krisha is just like, try to create a family. And like from the dolly grip on, like just by the end of the first week, we all loved each other. And that was great. But I was too young in my filmmaking to realize the budget constraints and all this uphill battle shit we were having on that movie. So all of that tied together was tough. It combined with the fact that like, it's my personal movie I wrote in grief that we're like making is like, but when we were shooting it, we didn't really approach it as a horror movie. It was more just a drama, it's like intense and at times. And I didn't know, it's naive for me not to think how they were going to market it, but I still didn't really know. So
I mean, you do have guys with gas masks and shotguns and
that too. I mean, and we're playing with the apocalypse. I know there's more commercial aspects, and I know we're in that space. And I'm getting as a film geek, I'm getting to put flashlights on guns and go down corridors and do all this new stuff. So it was a mix of. It was an amazing experience, huge learning experience though. Like I feel like that was my worst I've ever been as a filmmaker overall, like all things considered. And I think my worst film. But that's a whole other thing.
Well, just to jump forward, because I know we're running out of time. So then you make Waves, which is another hit film that people love it. And I noticed that Alexa Demi is in that movie, Waves, who happens to be on Euphoria, that happens to be created by Sam Levinson, who happened to make The Idol with Abel the Weeknd. Was there any connection to that? Is that how you got to him?
That's whole other off the mic frustration thing there. But yes, no intentional connection, but always a connection. And frustrating. But long story short, I had no involvement with The Idol. And right.
I just meant you, the people you knew.
It was producers actually. My producer Kevin, who sadly passed away on this film in post-production. I loved him. He was amazing. He produced Euphoria and he produced Waves. And we cast Alexa because she had just auditioned for Euphoria and killed it. And then Kevin was like, "You should see her." And then I just did a Zoom with her and loved her. And then she met Kelvin and they hit it off like crazy. So but the frustrating thing for me was like when Waves came out, it did really well critically. Critics were super kind. But it had no marketing spend or aware. Like it made like $1 million in theater. Like no one saw it, no one heard of it, and Euphoria was becoming this huge phenomenon.
Sure. You're like,
so I was like,
I mean, it is TV, but Alexa, I can see that like what works in Waves for me is the same thing that works in Euphoria, where you're just like lost in these performances that these people just feel.
If it had come out a year later,
absolutely.
I think you would have been able to ride that wave more. Right.
100%. 100% agree. That would have been way better timing for us. But Alexa's, oh my God, she's amazing. The first day, her first scene we had to shoot in Waves is when her and Kelvin go to the abortion clinic. So it's like heavy shit. And then her first big scene is like their fight when they're leaving. And like we did like 3 takes, 2 cameras going simultaneous. And it was the feeling was incredible. It was like take 1 was like, oh my God.
How much are you, for listeners that haven't watched Waves yet? I mean, it's a super dramatic, like full on blown out teenage fight scene.
Heavy fun. I mean, my inspiration for that scene was, like Heavy Shit and Raging Bull and stuff. You know what I mean? That's one of my favorite movies. So, it's a very heavy scene. It requires
like
great
aggressive and abrasive. Yeah. So how do you prepare an actor to, especially when you're trying to get this kind of real aesthetic? What do you say?
That again is just what I like doing is we don't do traditional rehearsals whatsoever. We just do one is I had her and Kelvin hanging out a ton. Like they were forming a whole relationship while I was in pre-production.
He's the lead actor.
He's the lead actor. He plays the brother and her partner in the film. And 2 is I put hanging time. I love like just hanging out with the actors. So you have like, each other, you trust each other before day one. And we had conversations about character and intent and kind of analyzing scenes and spitballing ideas. So the groundwork's all laid. And then you're just like excited, like, how's it going to be? What are they going to do?
On a practical level, and I think now you produce along with a team, but like produce the films yourself. How does that? Do you pay for that? Do you know what I mean? How do you orchestrate that? You know what I mean? That's right. Like
the hangout time. Like are you like, hey actors, can we pay you to come hang out?
I mean,
or you just like you're all in a group text and you're just like, hey, let's go get burgers.
Just group text. Yeah, we don't pay for it. It's on Waves. Like we were on location in South Florida shooting. So like everyone was kind of there. So we could just hang out there.
Easier
for my new movie, for Hurry Up, all of us were in LA. And I was like, obviously, I was with Abel, like constantly getting good hangs in with Barry, time with Jenna. I don't know.
I guess
but it's nothing paid or anything. It's just like off the text messages.
It's not quote unquote rehearsal time in the way
exactly. I kind of in my head it is my rehearsal, but it's not official rehearsal.
Right. I mean, on that note, and kind of talking to the actors and hanging out with them before they're made. I'm assuming a lot of listeners don't know that Hurry Up Tomorrow is kind of very much intertwined with Abel, with the Weeknd's album, his latest album. So how did you guys kind of wrote it together?
Yeah.
His music?
The cool thing is it was the other way around. Like he just wanted to work on something together. And he was like, what if it's attached to an album? I was like,
he saw Waves and was like, I want to work with this kid.
I had known he liked It Comes at Night because he tweeted about it. And then he apparently, he had loved Waves. And again, we shared producers. So Kevin and Harrison put us on a meeting and I went in very skeptical. I was like, I'm not going to make a movie with The Weeknd. I don't know what this is.
Sure.
And then I don't know what I just didn't assume we'd even hit it off. I don't know. But then I loved the guy. Like he was like humble and he was like a sweet Canadian boy with like good taste. And like, we loved the same kind of movies and we just clicked. You know what I mean?
What did you guys talk about in that first meeting?
I don't even remember. A lot of movies. We talked about movies. We talked about his idea for this movie.
What movies like sparked between you two? I'm curious.
Dude, it feels like so long ago. Now all that I remember is the ones that ended up becoming influences on this movie, which I could list those. But at that time, I don't even know if we were talking about those movies. It was more like generality stuff. But for this movie, it was, for me, the big one was Bergman's Persona and having him either rewatch it or watch it for the first time. I couldn't remember. It was like Persona, Raging Bull, Purple Rain, Jacob's Ladder, Audition. What else? A real range of movies. And that gives you some clue to like what our movie is like.
That's
and
great.
how would you describe Hurry Up Tomorrow?
I'm very bad at I could give the like synopsis that they tell me
take Audition
to say,
and you mix in some Purple Rain and then
well, it's kind of based on he's a pop star, right? Or,
he is. He's a pop star playing
himself.
A pop star.
Yeah.
He's playing like a version of himself, like kind of a character I created in the way like Krisha, my aunt, was playing not her. She was playing like an amalgamation of different addicts in our family, so we could kind of explore this. And for this movie, I was kind of like doing these therapy sessions with him, not actual just like long phone calls and finding out about each other. Yeah, exactly. And finding out about his past, and then I kind of try to concoct a character of like if he made wrong choices, because like what I was surprised by is he's a sweet, smart, humble guy with like good people in his life, and like he's not corrupted by whatever the pop star.
So
Hollywood
it's like the
machine.
opposite of The Idol, basically.
Quite literally. So, but for this, then I started kind of creating a character of like, if he made the wrong choices, along the way and didn't quite have himself surrounded by the right people. And long story short, it's very, it's like a bit of a psychological thriller that's a bit unconventional, also drama. And, I think if you see my other films, they're meant to be experiential, like we talked about, it's like subjective film grammar, I like to call it. And this is taking that, pushing it, I think, a little bit further than I have so far, but easily the best filmmaking I've had in any of my movies, I think. And I'm extremely proud of it. So why I'm really proud is like every movie, the goal is to like swing for the fences and try to make something that feels like hopefully unlike something you've seen. Obviously we're influenced by every movie you make is going to have a comparison to something.
Sure.
But I'm always trying to do something different at least. And with this, I just feel like I think we've achieved that ambition more than anything I've made, in a sense. Like, it's a hard movie to pin down. I don't really know, like literally it's kind of Persona meets Purple Rain, like, but not in a sloppy way. Like, it's all very intentional and connected, and I'm extremely proud of it. I can't wait for y'all to see the full film, because like,
I know, I was like bummed we didn't have the full screener, but it kind of, now hearing you talk about it and talking about experiential films, it reminds me, I went to the ArcLight, RIP, a few years ago to watch Spring Breakers, and Harmony Korine comes out in the theater, which I'm so happy he did.
First A24 hit.
Because he's cameo in Waves too.
Oh, really?
If you watch Waves again, the sister, when she takes over the story, when she's in a classroom, if you listen to that teacher talking, that's Harmony Korine.
I do like the idea of casting him.
Gasper has a cameo in the new one.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, what Harmony said before the movie started was, he's like, hey, this movie is meant to be like felt, not like, don't worry about understanding every single thing. Just enjoy it, experience it, be at spring break,
Totally. My only caveat is, I would say our movie, the funny thing is, I've been saying how unconventional it is, but compared to that, it's still more conventional in terms of like, I am a bit, I think it's a bit more conventional, and I care about structure and
3 acts. Because even I was saying that he's the main character, and you called him the brother, because the main character is kind of changed in that movie, a little psycho style.
And Waves is like a diptych, and I was like inspired by Chungking Express and Full Metal Jacket and Melancholia, and movies that kind of split at the halfway point. But the way I wrote, we found it in the edit even more in terms, we had to compress it for length. A24 wouldn't let us release a 3.5-hour movie, but I essentially wrote 2 movies. I know, exactly. They were smart about that. But I like shot enough and wrote enough to, if you look at the structure of each movie, they could be like, Tyler's story is the structure of Krisha. Like, they're both kind of their own separate movies that were meant to be fused into one, if that makes sense. So yes, it's unconventional doing the diptych split down the middle, but if you take each on its own term, it does kind of have at least in my head, a conventional structure,
Yeah, that's awesome. And then I guess I know we have to wrap up. My last question is just about the rest of the casting. Like, how the hell do you get Jenna Ortega and Barry Kay?
Like maybe like literally the 2 hottest stars right now. You know what I mean? Like, the most in demand people you can think of, right?
Well, one big thing is timing was it. We shot this is my longest post-production, because an album didn't exist. So like literally we were just sitting in post-production while he was making an album. So we shot this like 2 years ago, and it was super quick. I met Abel in October. We outlined in November, had a script in December. We're shooting by February.
There you go.
So post-Wednesday, pre-Beetlejuice.
So basically right when we met Jenna, Wednesday was like way pre Beetlejuice, but Wednesday was just starting to pop, and Jenna was just starting to deal with that. Barry was like, him and Abel were already friends, and I literally just went over to Abel's house, hung out with Barry. He agreed to do the movie without reading the script. He just we talked about it, talked about his character, talked about what their relationship would be, and we just liked each other, and he knew my other films, so he just agreed to do the movie, which that is like the biggest casting blessing ever, when like you avoid all the bullshit. And Jenna was luckily, I'm assuming, because like, the Weeknd's already attached, and Barry, like, you're already having this like package. So like we got Jenna's attention,
and she's doing the super mainstream giant pop tentpole stuff that it's really nice to kind of undercut it with like an A24 film.
Literally, like I could tell she loves these kind of movies and she wanted to be doing something more in this vein, you know? And she's fucking amazing in the movie. One of the most amazing people I've ever worked with.
So smart. Like hearing her being interviewed when she's like 19 years old. And I'm like, she does
so smart, man.
10 times better interview than I would ever do.
I'll say too, dude, going into it, Abel really pushed Jenna on me because I had only seen her in X and Scream. And I was like, she's solid, but like the movie, like kind of the movie kind of goes on her shoulders in the third act, and like it wouldn't work without a great performance. And then I just met her and I loved her, but then like once we started shooting, like she was 20 years old, and like the level of talent, like I wouldn't have a fraction of it at 20 compared to what she had. Like it was, to me, like sky's the limit for that girl, and I can't wait for people to see her in more stuff and like see her range. At least from my experience, she's phenomenal. I love her. And Barry's obviously amazing. He's like an untamed. You just gotta like
turn the camera on and get.
It's like the European Kieran Culkin.
Yeah.
My 9-year-old daughter, I told her I was interviewing a director that worked with Jenna Ortega, and she wanted to know if she can meet her.
Yeah, got you.
I said I'll ask, but I don't think it's going to happen.
I mean, I could ask Jenna, but she's a busy person.
Yeah.
Okay, well, she happens to be in LA. Let me know.
Hell yeah.
Well, awesome.
Trey,
Congrats.
this has been so awesome. I mean,
super insightful.
So fun for me too, guys. Like genuinely, just being able to like, I don't know, no rules, just get in there. It's very good.
Cool. Good.
Awesome.
Yeah. Glad to hear it. That's vindicating because that's always the pitch.
Well, the pitch came true.
Good. Yeah. If after this, if you're like, Sarah, I can't believe you put me in with these yahoos.
Yeah. Speaking of Yahoo,
yeah.
It's a great search engine. Do we usually at the end of every episode do these like an unpaid endorsement? But I know we're over your time. Like I think we're 10 minutes over when you're supposed to be done. So we can just do them ourselves. But if you want to hang on for like another 5,
oh, good.
10 minutes,
I'm chilling. This is my last thing today. So
unpaid endorsements.
My unpaid endorsement, just to jump into it, is Oren. Do you know the breaking and entering guys? They do like short videos, like reels, basically called "Everything You Need to Know in Advertising in 60 Seconds." And she's the 2 young dudes like with a whiteboard in like some Manhattan office with like no furniture at all, just like so hyped on like, you know, the new AOR for whatever Kellogg's or something like that. They're just like giving you like real deep advertising news of like agencies and production companies in 60
What are they called?
Breaking and entering.
Fascinating.
On Instagram?
I follow them on LinkedIn, but they do, you know,
that's a real
I love LinkedIn,
nerd.
Trey. I'm all about it now. I'm all about
well
it. We make our living in commercials. And you know, like that's where all of the suits are, right?
I get
like,
100%, dude. 100%.
So, you know, it kind of cuts through the noise. Anyway, breaking and entering, they're in their 20s. They're shouting about, you know, all the new ads that are coming out. But it is a reminder that like making advertising can be really fun and kind of cool.
That's awesome.
And it's like as like a thing that sometimes I've learned to really embrace and love genuinely, but wasn't my plan. Do you know what I mean? Like you start off thinking you're going to...
Yeah. Not everyone can be a Trey Edward Shults.
Sure.
You know?
Right. Yeah, for sure. And maybe someday I'll be that too. Like I'd rather be like Mike Mills, right? Trey, you are to Terrence Malick as I was to Mike Mills, but I didn't go make movies. Mike does like music videos and the best commercials. And then also these incredible heartfelt films.
Yeah, got it.
Right. You're saying that
I was like an intern running around watching him and being like, I want to do what you're doing, Mike.
But why
lesson?
Why no movie?
Money, honestly. Yeah.
And
like,
I assume your ideas and everything you like, the inspiration for you was too expensive to just like figure out the cheap way to do something,
cheap version.
Right?
Yeah. You know, I think I did a lot of web series like to start out, and then did like a lot of sketch comedy for like Funny or Die and College Humor, places like that.
I mean, Matt did produce a movie that his wife directed.
That's true.
Just a couple years ago. Yeah.
Awesome.
So the dream is not dead for sure. But I think as I've gotten older and my mortgage is real and my daughter's daycare is real, you're just like, well, and also it's so fun, Trey. It's so fun. That's the flip side. So in my ideal scenario, I'm like shooting a movie for 2 months and then go doing a few commercials and like rinse and repeat for the rest of my life.
Got it. Love it.
Anyway, the point is,
breaking and entering.
So fun. It's like a great adventure, and like I said, like a reminder of like how exciting this aspect of the industry is. It's really cool.
I love that.
Trey,
my turn, right?
Yeah, it's your turn.
A thing I like is a place called Chicken Joe's in Santa Teresa in Costa Rica, and it's awesome. It's just like an amazing chicken place. I think they're called CJ's now, but if you ever find yourself down there and you see the shack called CJ's, before it was like called Chicken Joe's, and it was like the chicken from one of those animated Surf's Up movies or something as their logo. Right. Like I feel like they don't have to. They just get like, away with that stuff. Yeah, exactly.
They just found a logo on the internet. That's
exactly. We went and we got like the rain was crazy and we just went in there on a whim. It was like a little ramshackle place and like out of this world. The chicken and the food was insane. So if anyone finds themselves there, you got to check it out.
I mean, chicken is it's the best. Matt's a vegetarian, unfortunately, but
I still know
might have something else good there, you know.
My dad, literally 50% of our conversations, he lives in Israel. He's just like, I mean, what are we gonna do? Chicken is the best food that there is. We can try all these fancy foods, but it's like chicken is more delicious. That's what we talk about after the weather. We've finished discussing the weather.
I love.
Anyway, I'm gonna endorse something that I might have mentioned on our recording last night. I don't remember, but since that's not coming out for a couple of weeks, I'm okay with it. But it's this Instagram account, Void Stomper. Have you guys heard?
I think you just talked to me about it.
Oh, just talked. Yeah. Have you heard of this guy at Void Stomper, Trey? He's like an AI artist, and his stuff is so bonkers. I'll put it in the chat here.
Void Stomper.
And it's like, you've probably maybe seen his stuff, like people reposting it, and a lot of people steal his things and just repost them. And I don't even know what his process is. Most of what he posts, you would think that like the AI overlords wouldn't even allow you to generate, you know?
They shouldn't.
It's like, so it'll be like footage of people on an airplane freaking out about this monster coming down the aisle that has like 100 legs. It's all photorealistic, looks super real. It's so wacky. But recently he's got 2.2 million followers on Instagram. And recently he made this video. If you guys scroll down, you'll see him talking about how his life is horrible. and it's not funny at all.
Oh no.
But it's like, he's like, everyone's like, dude, you got millions of followers. And he like hasn't figured out how to monetize it.
Oh no.
That's crazy.
But he's like, I think I'm going to put more of myself out in the world. And it's weird because it's like, when you see this, you just assume it's some like weird Russian bot farm making this stuff, but it's really just a guy.
That's
and
amazing.
it is. I mean, yes, it's AI. Who knows how much art has been stolen making this? But I mess around with AI a lot. I cannot figure out how he makes any of this stuff. I've tried to make stuff like what he makes. I cannot do it.
I'm going to check him out. That's fascinating.
There's a sense of authorship to it too. A lot of the stuff you kind of think you knock on AI for, like somehow he's sort of worked his way around it, and it's like it feels really original and visceral and like I said, authorial. It's cool.
It's pretty incredible. I mean, this is art.
Yeah, it's not like those freaking. My friend yesterday is like, "Hey, have you seen the new Nolan trailer for whatever Odyssey?"
Sure.
And I typed in Odyssey trailer Christopher Nolan into YouTube, and it's like 100% AI generated trailers, and I was
just
like so angry.
Person like sort of like blinking in slow motion as the camera dollies around them.
Yeah.
Well, Trey, if people want to follow you, are you on Instagram or anywhere else? Can people?
I'm not. I'm a weirdo. I got no social media.
Can people follow the movie?
Yeah, follow the movie. Hurry Up Tomorrow has Instagram. Jenna has hers. Abel, The Weeknd has his. The movie's coming out.
Let's get Jenna and Abel some Instagram followers. Come on.
They really need it. They're really struggling.
The word out.
Follow the movie. Follow the movie. You know?
Cool. Well, if you guys have any questions for us, God, Jenna has 37 million followers.
I know. And then Abel has like 70 something million. It's nuts.
The Weeknd, let's see. Is he still, what's the deal with no E in Weekend? Did you ever ask him that, or is that too personal?
Oh, fuck. I forget why. Million. I know there's a reason. It's like a simple reason. I forget why.
He's like, just for Google. It makes it a lot easier to search.
Exactly.
I don't like to pay for vowels.
Yeah, he's just like worried about SEO.
If you guys have questions for us, you can email us at justshootitpod@gmail.com. You can find us on social media at justshootitpod. I'm at O.Kaplan.
And I'm at Mr. Matt Venlo. This episode was edited by Kevin O. Yang. Thanks, Kevin. And our producer, Tyler Small. And you're listening to music provided by the Free Music Archive and the artist, Jahzzar. Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.
Thanks.
Beautiful.